What's up, spilled milkers? Welcome back to another edition of Go Fork Yourself. Of course, I am Andrew Zimmern. Let's get right to it. So many interesting things to talk about. The other day, I talked about a couple public safety issues, and I have an update on both of them. California, the great state of California, fifth largest economy in the world, that's why this is an important story, continues to lead the charge on advancing school food safety and nutrition. I have a wonderful column here from the folks at the Center for Science and the Public Interest. The California legislature passed another landmark food safety and school nutrition bill, Assembly Bill 1264, one that I am proud to say I worked on, following up on last year's California School Food Safety Act and the California Food Safety Act of 2023. Now, AB 1264, first of its kind bill, enshrines a definition of ultra-processed food, or UPFs. And the reason that this is so important is this bill in California will benefit public health by eliminating foods from school cafeterias that are clearly nutritionally unhealthy and laden with unsafe additives, and will help the industry identify products to reformulate or discontinue. And obviously there's a nationwide crackdown on unhealthy foods and unsafe ingredients nationwide. California is the leader amongst all states in this right now, and obviously scientists are increasingly concerned with all the different chemicals that we're putting into our body, forever chemicals and cancer-causing ones. This is a major piece of legislation, and it's the great thing about it is that it provides the template for other states to do the same. Providing safe school meals to children should be one of our priorities, and not something that we brush away to the side. So bravo to California for that. Last week I made a statement about PFAs, harmful forever chemicals that are especially found in non-stick coatings on pots and pans. I do not use any pots or pans in my house that have a non-stick coating for exactly that reason. I would encourage you all to do the same. I have been involved with the environmental working group in working on a lot of public safety laws involving food. In fact, that's who I worked with on Assembly Bill 1264 that just passed in California. Now, a lot of people are sort of confused by that, or my stance in general, and saying, hey, but how could these things be out in the marketplace and still be unsafe? Well, I mean, it took us generations to put a warning label on cigarettes, and we all know that they're cancer-causing. I can tell you this, and I wanted to read a letter that is going to the governor of California, signed by culinarians from around the country. And I'll just read a small piece of it. As chefs, we know from our own experience that cookware can be made without the forever chemicals known as PFAs. Alternatives to cookware with PFAs include stainless steel, carbon steel, cast iron, and ceramic cookware. I mean, people have been cooking on them forever. These alternatives are widely available at all price points. And I want to stress that, all price points. I mean, Lodge cast iron is about as inexpensive a pan and the best bang for your buck you'll ever have. And all you have to do is cure them with a little bit of oil. It takes, a couple of hours. And as long as you take care of it, you'll pass it down to your grandchildren. The harms, all these alternatives are widely available at all price points, available at major retailers, including Target, Walmart, IKEA, Williams-Sonoma, and Crate & Barrel, and of course, obviously online. All cookware made without PFAs. The harms of PFAs are well known, including links to cancer, harm to the reproductive system, harm to the immune system. In addition to potential PFAs, exposure to consumers, manufacturing PFAs can impact people living downstream or downwind, either of PFA manufacturing facilities. Now, you may have heard there are a lot of public voices out there arguing against restrictions on PFAs, and I would like to underscore, take a look at who some of those people are. They are people with a commercial stake in cookware products that contain these chemicals. And while we respect anyone's right to do business, it is important, these are my words, it is important, moving back to the letter, to separate business interests from public health outcomes. And I want to read you what we have underlined. The facts are clear. Safer, effective, and widely available alternatives exist. Consumers should not have to bear the health costs of outdated technology. If you would like more information about this, you can simply go to ewg.org. And obviously, we will stay on top of this here for you and bring you news as I am hoping that this mandate against the use of PFAs in pots of pans becomes law in California. And then because it's the fifth largest state in the union, fifth largest economy in the world, these manufacturers will cease to be making cookware with PFAs in them because they can't afford to make two kinds. One for the fifth largest economy in the world and the other one for everyone else. Okay, this is extremely disturbing news, and we have a link here to the Wall Street Journal. The USDA, for decades, has done an annual end-of-year hunger survey. Through that survey, teaching universities, all the way down to soup kitchens, neighborhood activists, anyone who's trying to work to solve our hunger problem in America, uses this government data to establish baselines for where we need to exert the most work, right? Sometimes neighborhoods, the right people do some fantastic work in Cleveland, and magically Cleveland's numbers start to go down, and we can start to turn our attention to other places that don't have boots on the ground, as it were, making sure people get fed. It's beyond criminal, let's just put it that way, that there are hungry people here in America, the richest and most advanced society in the history of the world. Now, since the 1990s, as I said, going back decades, over three decades, the government has been measuring hunger statistics. But the current administration now says the report has become over-politicized, and that last year's numbers, which come out right about now, will be the last ones we will hear from, and that in 2025, because the tracking is usually begun at the end of each year, will not take place. So the government will no longer gather data on how many Americans struggle to get food. I trust you are as outraged as I am. The decision to discontinue the survey for 2025 was announced in meetings with USDA employees this past week by an administrator for the Economic Research Service, an arm of the Ag Department, according to people present at these meetings. Now, you probably heard me talk for years about the fact that we need a cabinet-level secretary of food so that we don't have different government agencies all working across purposes. One data gathering group within the Department of Ag supplying information to the USDA to put out a report. I mean, you can see where this starts to get very wonky. But just this last Saturday, the USDA confirmed it was canceling the survey. The reason given was because the non-statutory report, that means it's not required by law, became overly politicized, and upon subsequent review was unnecessary to carry out the work of the department. No word on this from the White House. Shock and anger at the USDA, as well as economists outside the agency who work closely with the data. Given the current rise in inflation and the massive spike in the cost of food at the retail level, these numbers are more important than ever. More people will be going hungry over the course of the next year. And without this data, there is no way for people to begin to amass anything resembling a nationwide groundswell of support to make sure that those who are hungry get fed. The deterioration of labor market conditions, labor market conditions are also, along with the rising price of food, the top two reasons people go hungry, right? That means you don't have a job, right? Or your hours are restricted, your income is reduced. Now, the current administration says that these numbers are being used as a political weapon against them. And like so many other things, they're basically saying, these numbers aren't true, we're doing fantastically. America has never been better in every single way, when in fact that is a canard. More people now, hunger is a prevalent issue. And I want to read you something. I am going down here. All right. This cancellation of this data also comes on the heels of cuts to federal spending on food aid programs. We just had a law passed this summer that's signed by the president that reduces funding and tightens work requirements for people who get food stamps, otherwise known as SNAP. So what we're doing is we keep pushing down on the bottom 25% of income earning Americans, and food insecurity has become the leading indicator of vulnerability for all Americans, according to a professor of economics at Baylor University in Texas, who studies this stuff and is one of the leading voices in the country on it. Lindsay Taylor, professor, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, in the nutrition department at the University of North Carolina Gilling School of Global Public Health, said that without the study, the nation would have no real compass on the key health indicator for Americans. And she asked the question that I'm asking and hoping that all of you talk around your kitchen table about this and to your municipal and state leaders. Quote, why would you not want to measure it? The only reason why you wouldn't measure it, she went on to say, is if you were planning to cut food assistance, or obviously cut it even more, because it basically allows you to pretend like we don't have a food insecurity problem. And if that sounds familiar to a lot of other things that we experience these days here in America, I don't think you're drawing an improper conclusion. Okay, on to less dire news. Ruby Tando has a new book out. I'm putting a link here. It's called All Consuming. She is a brilliant philosophical voice in the world of food. It is a little bit heady, some of the stuff that she writes about. And you might know her from the Great British Bake Off, the OG version in 2013, and the cookbooks that came from that series. She has become an outspoken voice on food and culture, and whether culture is influencing food, food is influencing culture, and who is doing within each the influencing. And I mentioned before in my little mini book roundup the other day of books by Frankie Salenza, Thomas Straker, a book that she actually references in this interview in Eater. I put the link here for you to read. Because, are we, Thomas Straker, chef, owns a restaurant in London, but most famous in social media. Frankie Salenza, TV personality and social media phenomenon. And you see a lot of books by social media phenomenons, many of whom are phenomenal cooks. Look at Olivia Tiedemann. Are you going to tell me she's not a great cook? She's phenomenal, right? As just one example. Right? So I leave it up to you to decide, but this book, All Consuming, is absolutely brilliant. And I want to read you one question and answer in this article. I found it very thought-provoking. The interviewer writes, "You make this argument that food writers are not moving the culture forward in a particularly meaningful way compared to these bigger systems like social media. It's a huge change over the last generation. Huge. As a longtime food writer, how did you square that argument with feelings of purpose around writing this book? Or even writing Vittles, another one of her book, which publishes recipes and food writing?" And Tando replied, "I do think that food writers change things, and I think that food media is an important body of work. Cumulatively, what we all do to make sense of the culture, it's also about keeping a record, and that itself is valuable. But when food writers write about the history of food, so often it's confined to the history of food writing. It's cookbooks, it's critics, and so on. In other words, it's not populist." Returning now to Tando's reply, I wanted to say, look, other people shape the food system, and often in more powerful ways. When you have 1 million people shaking cucumbers every day in a jar just because that guy on Instagram did it, the stupidest hack of all time. When you have 1 million people all doing sheet pan dinners at night, even though 15 disparate ingredients can't all cook perfectly to the same amount of time. The only kind of sheet pan dinner I would ever recommend you make is one where you add things one at a time, with the things that take the longest amount of time going onto the sheet pan first. Sorry to editorialize within reading Ruby Tando's answer, but I wanted to explain to you how this works. Continuing, other people shape the food system often in more powerful ways. They're seldom the people you would think. It's some guy drawing up migration legislation, one example. These are really, really big shapers of our food system. And then downwind of that, you have the food. We give so much airtime to food people and the cluster of people who create most of food media, famous writers, editors, cookbook writers, etc. But there is a world of food beyond food media. And I believe she has hit on something. It's a really worthwhile article. Where food culture is being influenced has changed dramatically from where it was being influenced 20 years ago. And I think it's absolutely fascinating. It is a great interview, and I encourage you to read it all. Belly has topped Yelp as many young diners' restaurant rating app of choice. And I will tell you right now, I don't agree with everything that Belly says, but because it's crowdsourcing information. But young people are eating out more and more, and as their social activity, and they're doing a better job than the generation before them did on Yelp, which is just, crowdsourcing idiocy, if you ask me. Very interesting article there. The New York Times came out with its list of the 50 best restaurants of 2025. Its reporters also shared a behind-the-scenes look at their choices, plus dining trends and more. I love this article every year now that it's come. I think it's the 3rd year in a row. I also despise it. Why do they have to use the word best? It's crazy. And the title is officially The Restaurant List 2025. Here are the 50 best places in America right now. But they include a lot of really great places to eat, but they're not allowing for cumulative reporting in the names, in terms of the names of the restaurants. So you're going to tell me that, and there's 2 restaurants listed from Minnesota, which is fantastic. You're going to tell me that Demi or Spoon and Stable, 2 of the best restaurants in the 5-state area, somehow are now less good. I eat at both frequently. I actually think they're both better than they were last year. So I think words matter. And so with awards, with listicles like this, the best, how about new, or our editors' favorites, or letting people know right at the top of it, if you've already won this designation before, you can't be eligible with it, and just at the back, list all the former winners. So then you'd have a compendium of the best restaurants in America. It just absolutely drives me batshit crazy. Another thing that drove me batshit crazy about the New York Times. They're doing a good job. I mean, it's thought-provoking, right? They have 4 or 5 people doing reviews these days, and one of their reviewers went back to Alinea, one of the most important and still delicious restaurants in America. And she didn't pan it, but she did that thing I hate about restaurant critics. Hate. Where they give essentially a negative review and at the end, in the very last sentence, kind of turn it around to make it seem as if they're very open-minded about it. I will tell you right now, I eat at that restaurant once a year. I absolutely find it remarkable. Grant Achatz and his team every single year. And I dined there the year they opened and every year since. Continue to create absolute magic with the food. It is delicious. There are delicious, classically made things that just remind me about what a brilliant culinarian in the 19th century sense Grant Achatz is, yet at the same time can do things as modernist and as brilliantly food forward as anyone working in food today. And he is a genius for it. And, for what it's worth, and I want to read you this critic's name, Ligaya Mishan is a chief restaurant critic for the New York Times. Read it for yourself. And you tell me there is just a part of me that feels she just wanted to go in there, because 1,000 stories have been written about Achatz's brilliance, right? So where do you get the attention? If you're a dining critic, write a negative review. And then people like me will give you oxygen. It just absolutely blows my mind. I want to read you the last line. I'm trying to get down to it. She really writes a lot of negative things about dishes I've had there that were absolutely fantastic. And I guess she went to Alinea twice, and she's talking about eating the edible balloon, one of the most famous dishes at that restaurant. The second time, the balloon's arrival is magic again, as if I'd never seen it before. Everyone shrieks with joy. Anything seems possible, and when the server hands me the string and whispers, "Give it a kiss," I lean in. It's the end. If you read that on its own, you'd think it was just absolutely fantastic. I'm stunned at some of the other stuff that she wrote about. And I just have to tell you, it ain't cheap. Does everyone have a perfect meal there? No. Because no restaurant is perfect, and everyone's experience can't be perfect. But Alinea does as good a job as any restaurant in the world at devoting themselves to the customer's happiness. Okay. And by the way, the New York Times gave 2 stars to 2 local restaurants here in the Twin Cities, Vinay and Diane's Place. That reviewer has their own mojo going. But, the current demotion in the New York Times eyes of Alinea to 2 stars, giving them the same balance as Vinay and Diane's Place. And by the way, the owners and chefs of those restaurants are friends of mine, and I adore those restaurants. They are delicious and wonderful and homey and divine. But to put them on the same wavelength as Alinea is why a national star system is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my life. Interesting article from the Washington Post on continuous glucose monitors and using them as a tool for improving health. Give it a read. It's interesting. The technology is there. You can wear something in your arm, like I have, and continuously monitor your glucose. It helps me with my health immensely. Food and Wine released its list of hospitality heroes, much like their Food and Wine 10 Best New Chef thing every year. This year it's dishwashers, line cooks, servers, etc. It's a really interesting thing. How you do that and get to all these magical places is beyond me. However, the fact that we are saluting these people, I think, is reason enough to do it. Jerry of Ben & Jerry's fame has quit his own company, saying the parent company has stifled him on political issues. That's his choice. I'm not going to compare this to the current situation going on at ABC and Disney with Jimmy Kimmel. But I will say both Ben and Jerry have been outspoken voices for the environment and lots of other issues. They are very much left of center. And if Jerry wants to cash out and take the chips off the table, so be it. I find it interesting because, you know, they sold to a big company and retained certain ownership of the brand, so that's why they have a parent company. So I guess they already took a lot of chips off the table. But if that company is stifling voices, this is an ongoing trend that we're now seeing in the food space, right? Much in the same way that late night comics who have helmed talk shows dating back to the 1950s have always skewered politicians and the people who make news, and their parent companies have always defended their right to say so. And it seems now we have a different trend going on. Samin Nosrat, famously, who wrote Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, has a new book that has just come out called Good Things. And it is getting a ton of press. The new book, I'll just read it here, is devoted to everyday gems like the perfect popcorn recipe, a zingy dressing, a cherished community to plan weekly dinners with, a community garden, anything creative. It turns out, I had no idea, she loves fabrics and textile work and textile design. And she says, quote, "My life revolves around all sorts of creative things. I'm more than an eater and a food maker. I'm trying to return to a state of porousness." I love the way she expresses that. The Cut did a little journey around Brooklyn with her. It's very interesting. I have not read the book yet. I'm looking forward to doing so. I would just say it seems like very much a food person has now expanded her purview and is moving into lifestyle. And if it can help one person out there be a little more grateful, be a little more happy, be a little more sunny, be a little more upbeat, then I am all for it. Maybe I should read it and I would benefit from that. See you next time, Spilled Milkers. And by the way, a big, giant go fork yourself to, hold on, all the folks at the in the federal government who said we don't need to collect data anymore at the Department of Ag on who is hungry and vulnerable in America. They're underserving the neediest people possible. Go fork yourself. Well, there's a first for everything. I hit the stop button. I got so excited about telling the Department of Ag where to go, I forgot about your questions. Apologies. Charles writes, how difficult is it to make good bacon? It's easy. There's about 15 different ways. And if you want to make it yourself from scratch, there's about 4 or 5 different ways. All of them are great. From salt cured to salt cured and smoked. It's really, really, really simple. Some fantastic work on line on the subject. Brian Polson and Michael Ruhlman's book remains a great one. But these days, one of the things that I love about the internet is you can go on YouTube and watch brilliant people who are smarter about the meat arts than I will ever be show you how to make bacon from scratch. And if you're talking about simply crisping up something delicious, the higher the quality of the bacon you make, the better the bacon is going to be, because there are less additives, there's less water mixed in, which adds weight, which means they can charge more for it. It's usually cut more uniformly. The muscle and fat ratio is usually more consistent. I do mine on a pan in the oven and turn it after a certain amount of time and until I get the desired texture that I like. Related, Josh writes, how do you cook thick, crispy bacon for BLTs? In the oven, 325 degrees. That way I don't burn it, but I can get it crispy. I like my bacon crispier for BLTs. When I'm eating it with eggs or something else, I usually like it with a little more chew. Charles writes, why do you leave the head on the fish when you grill it? Well, Charles, because I can nibble at the nose and the cheeks and break apart the collars, which has got some of the most delicious meat on the fish. There's about 2-3 ounces of fantastic meat inside the head, and I'm not talking about the eyeballs or tongues or anything like that. It also allows me, and this is probably even as important or more important, to maintain more contact with the heat source, right? And it tastes better. And as those bones release their gelatins and they heat up, they release other flavonoids into the flesh. And as they scorch, they release their flavors into the flesh. And it's like roasting a chicken. A boneless, skinless chicken breast doesn't taste like anything but styrofoam most of the time. But a whole roasted chicken, like an angel's kiss, right? So I like to cook everything on the bone that I can. And I always leave heads on, fish that are small enough to do it. I mean, anything up to, I don't know, what about a 10-pound salmon is good. Kat writes, you've worn a red watch on your TV show. Can you tell me what brand it is? Oh, that was a long time ago. And I wish I had that watch back. And it was a red sport strap, rubber strap. And I can't remember for the life of me what the brand was. I haven't had that watch in 15 years. But I love that watch. Maybe I'll remember before I'm done with these questions. If I remember it another day, I will stick it up here. Cole writes, what are your favorite spots in Minnesota to visit in the fall? Oh my gosh. Just head straight north and go up to Lake Superior. Pile around Duluth and all the little small towns on the old highways up there. Get off of 35 and just get lost. Just get lost. Head up towards the Boundary Waters. Stay a night at Grandview Lodge. I mean, it's the typical Minnesotan stuff, stop at some of the good smokehouses and load up the cooler with a bunch of smoked whitefish. I mean, is there anything better? Grab some maple syrup, early morning breakfasts at a diner that has never seen a Sysco or US Foods truck in the history of its existence, where everything is purchased local and grandmas get up at 4 a.m. to bake the muffins that are put out at 5. To be in Grand Marais and eat at World's Best Donuts in the morning and have a skizzle, just go do it. Tell them I sent you. To stop at Betty's Pies, even though the pies have I'm more of a Satellites fan. There's a bunch of other places, but you got to make the stop at Betty's just because it is. I no longer stop at Toby's for cinnamon rolls because their cinnamon rolls have gone from amazing, over the course of my 34 years here, from amazing to very good to just shit-ass poor. It's become a factory, just overrun and touristy. But yeah, get off the beaten path, right? Another beautiful thing to do is to drive directly west towards the Dakotas, through little towns like farming communities like Luverne, just to eat at, again, little diners where they have an open-faced roast beef or turkey or roast pork sandwich that, you know, made by grandmas or grandpas in the kitchen. And to me, that's as good as a meal at any 3-star Michelin restaurant. And to see a sunset or a sunrise over a dried and crusting yellowy cornfield, it's absolutely stunning. The flatlands and prairies on the western half of the state don't have the rolling hills or the maple trees or, you know, the other leaf turners that are in our north and eastern part of the state. And there's less water, very little water out there in terms of lakes, and certainly you don't have Lake Superior there. But boy, oh boy, is it absolutely beautiful. You get a taste for small town life, and the people out there are as kind and gracious and awesome as any that I have ever met. So yeah, Minnesota's a fantastic place. And by the way, I stuck a big New England leaf hopping tour up on my Substack. You can check that out later. If you scroll, I'm sure my editor will stick that in the feed here. Until next time. And by the way, U.S. agencies that stopped thinking that taking care of Americans was their #1 priority, especially the most vulnerable ones, go fork yourself again.